another revenue stream. Okay. And those of you who didn't understand that, you go to bed too early, that's all I can say. Okay, let's give all these folks a round of applause. This was a nice talented group, as always. All right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to talk to each other. And I'll give you a suggested topic. If you don't like my stinking topic, you can choose something else. But talk to the person in front of you, behind you. Now, if you already know these people, don't be talking to people you already know. Please reach out and talk. Meet somebody new. Talk to somebody new. And the topic of our program today is essentially how overwhelming the job search process is. Because I've had 3 people this week sit down with me and say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed. So I want you to share what part of the job search process you think is the most overwhelming. How do you know what to do first, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and if you don't like that, if that's too negative for you, talk about your vacation, I don't care. But I want you to be talking about people. I mean, talking to people. Everybody clear? All right, get ready, get set, go. How many of you met somebody new? Excellent. How many of you exchanged business cards? Not so good. How many of you are going to connect on LinkedIn? Okay. Not bad. But that's the point. Anytime there is more than you in a place, it is a networking opportunity. And I encourage you to strike up a conversation. Doesn't matter where you are. When everybody's unemployed, the easiest way to do it is just say, what kind of work are you looking for? Or whatever. And then you're talking and you're sharing and you're connecting, and that is the whole point. Surely when you have the combined ideas and mental power of a group like this, it's a good thing. Okay, there's our topic. How many of you have wanted to run screaming, just like Lucy and Peanuts, because of unemployment? It is probably the most frustrating situation and condition that you will ever go through. It is more labor intensive than any other activity that I've ever encountered except for taking care of newborn baby. And it's tremendously frustrating. How to manage the overwhelming process of trying to find a job. When do you think it's most overwhelming? At the very beginning or after you've been unemployed for a while? How many think at the very beginning when you're first laid off that that's the most overwhelming time? I only see 3 hands. How many of you think that it's after you've been unemployed, say 3 months? Okay, probably another dozen, maybe more than that. How many after 6 months of unemployment you think it's the most overwhelming at that point? Yeah. Very often, the longer you're unemployed, the more overwhelming it becomes because the things that you thought would work haven't worked. And then you're like out of ideas. And so now you have even more bill collectors, you have that pressure on you, you've got more pressure perhaps from your family and your significant others, you've got, you're like brain dead as far as what do I do now, I tried that, it didn't work, I tried that, it didn't work. People run when they see me coming at networking meetings. I don't know, what do I do now? It's all pretty scary. Pretty scary. So I looked up clip art or whatever, images online for overwhelmed. And I thought, choose your image. Which one describes where you feel right now? I guess I'll go back for something else. There's that one. He's surrounded by paper. He's sleeping at his desk. This one, hard to see from where you are, but it's a small boat in a stormy sea. To-do list. Sometimes it's so overwhelming you can't even get started because it's like, it's too big, it's too immense. I think I'll just go back to bed. This was a little note to self. My brain overwhelmed. My thoughts scattered. My state overload. It's a country western song for sure. You got it. Okay, everybody recognizes this guy. And those pesky little Hushians. Years ago, many years ago, I did a presentation that was called Tethers, and I used him. I read it was like a statement. It wasn't even a full-fledged article, but it said, it was about unemployment, and it said, if you have been unemployed, whatever, 6 months or something like that, and you haven't found a job yet, then there's something that's holding you back. And so I thought, wow, that's amazing. What could be holding you back? And so we did a whole presentation on tethers, because the image that came in my mind when I read that was a hot air balloon that was tethered, and it can't fly. And so then we talked about, what are your tethers? What's one tether? Fear. Why is that holding you back? Fear of what? Fear of interviewing? Fear of rejection. Yeah, so you don't go to networking meetings and you don't have informational interviews. You don't ask for help because you're afraid they'll turn you down. You don't even sometimes apply for jobs that you really would like because you think that they're going to turn you down. I tell people all the time that looking for a job is like looking for a spouse. How many of us would have been hooked up with other people if we hadn't been so fearful of rejection? And you have your hand up. What's another?
Negative self-talk.
Negative self-talk. That is negative self-talk. We say, I know I look good on paper. I can get those interviews. Once I walk in the door, they see how old I am. They're not interested. Once they see that I weigh 300 pounds, they're not interested. Once they find out how long I've been unemployed, how much money I used to make, the fact that I didn't graduate, whatever your issue is, we start saying, that's gonna hold me back. And we get obsessed with that. That is certainly a tether. Mm-hmm. Bitterness and anger. Nobody in this room has that. Some of you who were on the job for a very long time, I had a guy that came through my classes. So what I do for my day job, for those of you that don't know, is I teach job search skill classes down the street at the workforce office. And I had a man who said he had worked 29 years, 10 months, and 13 days for IBM. And had survived many layoffs. Never occurred to him he would not be there for that 30-year milestone, even though IBM is notorious for that, is it not? And all of a sudden, 6 weeks before his 30-year party, he gets a pink slip, and it's like, what the heck? What's this all about? And it's not that you suddenly were not doing good work. It's not that you were, laying down on the job. It was a business decision. Ken McElroy, who was used to be on our board of directors, he was a returning new member last week. He volunteered already without even being asked to work at our reception table. Thank you so much. And he said he said, actually, I worked for this medical device company, DJO Surgical. They're still hiring. You should apply. I'll help you all I can if you want to apply for that company. In fact, they're trying to fill my position as a manufacturing engineer and my boss's position. So he's got a great attitude, and it's like, well, why aren't you there? Why did they keep you? Well, I was making too much money. So they want to hire somebody in my position who will work for less. Now, did they give you an opportunity, Ken, did they give you an opportunity to work that same job for a lot less money?
No, they didn't, but I noticed yesterday that I was an engineer 4, and while I was there, it was an engineer 3. Yesterday, they're looking for an engineer 2.
That's how it goes. So if he had a bad attitude, if he was kind of angry about the situation, it would certainly be understandable. But of course, you can let a little bit of anger seep into your interview. It's the kiss of death. It's like letting some egg yolk get in that egg white. It'll just be whipping up for a long time. It's never going to have little peaks in it because it's contaminated, it's tainted, and anger is that very same kind of thing. And what were you going to say?
Lots of drive or steam to keep going.
The keeping going. The keeping going is, the getting going at the beginning is hard enough. And then after, as the months roll by, and the opportunities are fewer, and keeping going, reinventing yourself over and over and over. That's why we encourage you to try to do new things. You know, go to different job clubs. Your SWAT team's not working for you, ditch them. Get another SWAT team. You know, say, I just need new people in my network, and so I'm gonna join this. Karen Kelby just went out. I'm not sure if she's coming back or if she got a phone call, but she started going to meetups, technical meetups, where she's continually interacting with different, really bright technical people, some of whom are job seekers and some of whom are working. There's nothing better than that, so you get this infusion of ideas and energy, and you too get energized as a result. Join some new groups, speak out, be a presenter at lectures, but there's a lot of tethers, and sometimes it's just one big tether that keeps you from getting hired. Sometimes it's a tether is family. Like you can't, you have to be in Austin. You can't move, you got kids in school. Frank Scamato looked for a job. He had a contract, he got laid off after many years with AMD. He got a contract job with Samsung. When that one played out, he applied for lots of different semiconductor companies here, but the guy said, I'm mobile. I'm in an apartment, I'm done, I'm out. And so he gets a job, now he's got a permanent job, but it's in Colorado. Not everybody can just get up and go somewhere. So there's, you know, if only you could relocate easily, you'd probably be hired, right? So there's that holds you back. And then there's sometimes when people have multiple tethers. You can't leave because your parents are elderly and they're sick and they're here, and your industry is in decline. And so the more tethers you have, the more it ends up being like Gulliver. Each one tether might not be so big, but you've got enough of them that it becomes a big deal. You're immobilized. You're not going anywhere. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, kind of complicated. Like you said, there's lots of drive, but I would say probably the biggest one is procrastination.
Procrastination.
On leads, you know, following up on networking things. You have to kind of keep yourself going, keep yourself self-motivated to keep moving forward.
That's right. So for those of you who couldn't hear, he said the tether that bothers him most is procrastination. And some people, some personality types are more prone to procrastination than others. In fact, one of the things that I do in my little classes is I give a personality assessment. There are 4 personality types, and it's not the Berkman inventory, it's not Myers-Briggs, it's like a parlor game, but it's accurate very often and a lot of fun. But there is the one of the personality types, which I call the nice one, they have 2 problems, 2 negatives. And one is that they have a hard time making up their minds because everything seems pretty good. That's one of the things about they're so nice. And the other one is that they procrastinate. Again, because everything seems pretty good. I have twins. Some of you know my sons because they're in the semiconductor industry, and they're identical twins. They have the same IQ, they have the same face, they worked at the same company. Lots of things are similar, but they have opposite personality types. And I gave them that little test, that little quiz when they were teenagers, and it's been very interesting to see how those personality traits have governed their careers and made a big difference. One of them is the personality type that is sort of a born leader. You know, they can take charge of things, they can see what needs to be done, and they want it done right then. And that one was the youngest manager in his company. He was the youngest director in his company. And when you look him up on LinkedIn, all the recommendations talk about his leadership ability and that sort of thing, that he stays calm in a crisis. And those are very specific characteristics that are associated with that little personality type. My other twin is the opposite. And he ended up with a BA degree and a BS degree because he couldn't make up his mind. And he's they have a dry sense of humor. He's hilarious, very funny. But when you look him up on LinkedIn, it's more things like one-on-one mentoring, and he's very good at working with junior engineers. And it's not that I'm in the head of the group. It's more he's behind the group, but he's making a mark more subtly, more nuanced. But procrastination. Procrastination. In fact, if we have time at the end of this talk, I'll tell you a very funny story about him and procrastination, where it did kind of pay off. But yeah, if you're putting things off, that's also, procrastination is also one of the signs of depression. And we've had a person who had chronic depression talk to Launchpad one time. She'd been dealing with depression since she was a child. And it's hard enough dealing with depression when you're working, but when you're not working and you have all of those additional pressures on you, then it gets really tough. And she said that sometimes just getting out of bed, very tough, very tough. And she said, so people who suffer from this have learned to appreciate small steps. So she said she always would put a chair by her bed, and she'd get like one leg up. Okay, and then she'd see how that felt. And then she'd kind of get another body part out and see how that felt. And then eventually she'd get to sit on the chair. She'd see how that felt. And that's like her process of getting out of bed in the morning. And so procrastination. It's another reason why you want to have a SWAT team. We had a guy who had been laid off after many years with applied materials. And he formed a SWAT team with people who had been laid off with him. So they already knew each other, they already knew and appreciated each other's skill sets. And they met every Friday. And they would set goals for the team, for the SWAT team. And they kept an Excel spreadsheet as to how if people met their goals. And if you met your goals, then you got your little row on your spreadsheet was filled in with green. And if you came pretty close, then it was yellow, and if you just bombed out that week, then it was red. And he said, what got me out of bed on Monday morning was knowing that I had to meet that SWAT team on Friday. He said, I hate looking for a job, I hate networking, I hate talking about myself, I hate every single aspect of this process. But I'm very metric driven, and I want it to be green. And that's what propelled him through the week. And so it's different with different people. Some of you are self-motivated. Some of you have got sticky notes all over your refrigerator and your mirrors and your house about you're fabulous, get out there and get that job, reach those goals. And some of us have got to have a person. We have to have a big stick and a big carrot and a big support group who believes in us. So one tether is tough enough, but a bunch of them, this is you. You're immobilized. So you got to think of how am I going to sever the tethers. That's a different kind of overwhelming. Never mind. It popped up. I just want to make sure you were watching. Things to do. These are things to do. Some people say I'm so overwhelmed. There's so much to do in the job search process, and I don't know where to start. I don't know how to organize my time. I don't have enough time to do everything. So for those of you, this is hard to read from back there. In the big circle, this is your job search stuff. Resume, cover letters, marketing plan, informational interviews, cold calls, target documents, call references, attend classes, upgrade skills, LinkedIn profile, create search agents, form SWAT team, improve your skill set, get certifications, build your network, hiring events, mixers, career fairs. I could have gone on, but my circle was too small. There's so much to do. What are you supposed to do first? What do you do first? What's the first thing? I have no idea, by the way. There's not like a right answer. Have a drink. I'm good. I'm good with that. It's like, I'm done. You can't do it. All right, the second circle, this is your family obligations. Children, significant other, your parents, four-legged children, cook meals, clean house, do laundry, help with homework, bedtime. You already have had a lot of stuff that in your personal life that requires your attention. And how are you going to fit all of this new stuff in on top of that stuff? And then that little circle, that's yourself. There's no time really for you, is there? There's so much that draws on you. And so most of us give to everything else that we have to do, but this stuff about having a drink, having fun, going to concerts, walking around the lake, we don't do that because we are so busy. We're so busy with so many other things. And that's all part of the overwhelmingness. So, one of the things you want to do is not waste your time with stuff and the job search that's not working for you. But how are you going to know it's not working for you until you give it at least a good solid try, and then another good solid try, and then maybe a third good solid try, and then you say, this isn't something that works for me. So applying online, I tell you, in every class I teach and in every orientation, that generally works where you look for the entire job search online about 10% of the time. So some people do get jobs by applying online and getting interviews and getting hired. So for some people, say, you know, I sent out 300 resumes in the last 2 weeks, I didn't hear back from anybody. That approach is not working for you. So do a few of them, send them out, target what you send out, and then move on to something that's going to work better for you. Agencies, some people say, I'm not signing up with agencies, it messes up my unemployment, they never send me out any good jobs, I'm not going to do that, I'm not looking for a temp job, I'm looking for a permanent job. And so they refuse to do that. We have some people in this room who have kept themselves employed for the last 5 years, all with agency jobs. And sometimes they do, they're temp to perm. We have a lot of our members right now who are working, who got laid off from IBM. And an agency called CTG is trying to rehire former IBM people and give them the same or similar jobs, but on a contract basis. So the company needs that skill set, they need that experience, but they're not able to bring people back on board in a fixed asset hire. So there are lots of agencies that have worked really, really well. Many jobs are temp to perm jobs, and I strongly encourage you to give that a think. Now, there are some agencies that are better than others. This is a good agency story. I have 2 friends who told me that they were trying to leave their former jobs and become recruiters. One of them is a member of our board of directors. And then all of a sudden I had a job club member who came to one of my classes, and he said that's what he was going to do. And I said, you know, that is really difficult. I've got experienced recruiters who tell me that field is kind of dried up right now. It's so cyclical and they say it's just crickets. That's all I hear is crickets. You know, looking out there for recruiter jobs, and it's just crickets. And so for you to start out as a recruiter trainee, no experience, I said, I think that's going to be very difficult for you. I have other people who've been trying to do it, and they haven't had any luck. And one of the handouts that we give you is the top 18 temporary staffing companies from the Book of Lists. And it tells you these staffing companies have jobs in these categories. And this young man didn't do that. He went into Yelp. I didn't even know that Yelp had this, but Yelp had the top 10 list of staffing companies in Austin, based on not the number of hours of people who were hired the way that list that I give you is. It's based on client comments. This staffing company really worked for me. You know, I immediately got a job. It was that kind of thing, a Yelp comment. And the #1 staffing company on that list is one that I had never heard of before. It's because they changed their name. They're now called A-List. And before they were called Ashby. I knew them as Ashby. But he said, the company that I signed up with was A-List Staffing. And he said, and guess what? I got a recruiter assistant job. It's a temp job, but I'm hoping I can leverage it and be a permanent job. And it's with ARM, which is a semiconductor company. I'm going to be working with Jody Garrison. And I'm like, what? Jody Garrison? Jody Garrison is a good friend. Jody Garrison has been a speaker at Launchpad. I had just come back from what was that party? Halloween or something like that. Yeah, it was a Halloween, no, it was a Mardi Gras party at Jody Garrison's house. And she told me how busy she was and how much she had 50 job openings and she had only one recruiter. And I'm like, you know, she could have told me she was looking for a recruiter assistant, but she didn't. We would have had all these people that would have wanted to go help her out. But she didn't tell me. She signed up with A-List Staffing. And so different things work with different people. In that particular situation, it was an agency that did the job. Job clubs, lots of people have gotten jobs because of connections. Job clubs, we have lots of recruiters that come here and announce jobs. We've had many, many people. We've got people here from other job clubs. Lots of folks get hired through Job Seekers Network at Hill Country Bible Church. We've had people get hired with Hire Texas. And so job clubs can be really good, but some people say, nah, you know, it's just a waste of time. I don't like to go to those meetings. You know, a bunch of losers. You know, I don't want to. Some people say that they don't really consider us a good resource for getting a job, but we're a great resource for keeping people pumped and motivated. And that's what they do. They look forward to it every week because they get free food and they get motivated. I went on vacation a few weeks ago to Mexico. And who did I come up with in this little town in Mexico? But a guy that he and his wife, he had gone through job club. He was a job club guy years and years ago. He'd been laid off. He was a statistician, laid off from AMD, and ended up being an instructor at UT, and blah, 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 and he went to work. And his wife said, oh, Mike used to talk all the time about how much job club helped him, and how he couldn't wait to get to the meetings, and it was just such a fabulous resource, and he learned so much about the job search process, and she said he just raved about job club all the time. And then I talked to Mike, and he said, yeah, you know, I like to go to those meetings, but you're never going to get a job except with, if you don't have a good network, that's how you get a job. You don't get a job by going to meetings like that. No, not at all. He said, they're fun, though, I like them, but no, I got a job through networking. Every job I've ever got, I got through networking. Not at those meetings. Okay, fine. Job boards, every once in a while, pigs fly, you get a job through Monster, Career Builder, somebody finds you in an unusual place and you get hired that way. Networking, some people get really, really good contacts with networking. Other people say, I can't stand it. It's just, you know, I try to break into people's conversations. They hate me. They won't make no eye contact because they know I'm unemployed, you know. And it's just like, they won't look at me. A girl, I'm trying to think of her name, I've lost it. She came to my classes this last week, and she told me that today and next week she has interviews scheduled with two of the very best companies, Project Management Institute, project management interviews with two of the best companies in Austin. GM, that's the one that's today, I think, and Google next week. And I said, wow, two of the best companies in Austin, how did you get those job interviews? And she said, I've been applying to both of those companies for months and months. I've never heard back. So that was apply online, didn't work for her. And she wasn't really even trying to get a job, but she went to, how many of you watched the World Cup games? Any World Cup games? Okay, how many of you watched a World Cup game in a bar? Not enough. Okay, so she's from Ghana. And so she said when the U.S. was playing Ghana, she went to those games and she went to a bar. And she said, when Ghana's playing, I am Ghanaian. She said, when Ghana's not playing, I am American. And so, but she sat next to a guy at a bar watching the game, and he had on a Google shirt. And she said, do you work for Google? And he said, yeah. And she said, well, that's one of the companies that I want to go to work for. And he said, well, give me your resume. If we have a job that you're qualified for, I'll put you in for it. That's how she got that. She talked to somebody in a bar. And so, you know, in her case, and that's how she got the GM thing too. She happened to be somewhere where somebody was that it was not planned, it was spontaneous, it was serendipitous, struck up a conversation, she ends up with an interview. Don?
Last night at Unplugged, I met a consultant. Hey, what do you headhunt for? An engineer? That's funny, I'm an engineer. She started drooling. I'm having lunch with her today. Just like
Okay, and you were at Unplugged?
Unplugged, yeah.
At Shady Grove?
Shady Grove, yeah.
Okay, so just to get this on the video, so he went to Unplugged, watching acoustic music, Shady Grove, struck up a conversation. Now, how did you know she was a consultant?
Friend of a friend. We've been talking for half an hour, and a buddy of mine says, and I'm asking, how do you know these people? Oh, they're friends. Oh, she's a headhunter. Really? Oh, you're a headhunter. Yeah, what kind? Engineer. That's funny, I'm an engineer. Really? Not just, boom.
That's how it happens. It rarely happens if you sit in your house.
Yeah.
But it frequently happens if you will get out and meet people and talk to people and strike up conversations. Yes,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I can't wait to go home and tell my wife that at the meeting today I was told to hang out in bars.
All right, all of you, tell your spouses that I said hang out in bars. Not just like strategically. Strategically, yes, Mark. Okay, Mark Miller. It wouldn't be a presentation if we didn't have an input from Mark Miller.
Okay, I have a blog post coming out on Monday. I have a client, late 30s, introvert. Very introvert. In fact, he is, I labeled him a cause-driven, people-oriented geek. And I had him, so being cause-driven, he came up with a list of about 20 companies that would meet his criteria. He worked the list, he worked the list, he worked the list for about 2 months. He suddenly had a contact inside of Whole Foods. He got the interview. It came out completely serendipitous. And the fact is he had been very, very strategically using LinkedIn to find people he knew who then could make introductions in. So for those of you who are introverted, by the way, going to networking events very often are pretty useless if you're not comfortable, is going and doing it one-on-one. Now he got a number of coffees with people who at companies that he thought he wanted to work at, and he quickly found out he did not want to work there. There happens to be a startup in town that's educational related, and I introduced someone I knew, product manager there, and she'd been there 3 months, and she was working her ass off. And he suddenly goes, I don't want to do that. So, yes, networking is key, and it doesn't mean necessarily going to networking events, and you'll never know when it suddenly will pop.
If we had more time, we're going to draw this to a close, but we've had many people who did things like decided while they were unemployed that they would try to run a 5K and joined a training group and sat next to somebody who ended up getting them an interview somewhere, or they decided to take a little conversational Spanish class, or they decided to volunteer, or they met somebody through Leap to Success, or they, anything. They sat next to somebody at graduation. But striking up conversations is key. Don't sit there like a stone. One of the things that we talk about in my Monday afternoon class is how introverts, how very shy people can be in a big crowd of people, and how you can talk to folks without liquor, and how you can get comfortable with that. And there is a real easy technique that I created for me because I don't like to do it, and it has worked with lots and lots of people. They say I never would go to those. I would never talk to people, but that little system works really well. So at any rate, hanging out, sometimes strategically, going to places where you suspect there might be people that are interested in the things you're interested in, but you have to talk to them. You have to talk to them. It's not just the hanging out in the bar. It's the talking to people who are in the bar. Is everyone clear on that piece? So what is it that you do? Determine your most productive time of the day as well. Some people are night people, some people are day people. I strongly encourage people, especially if mornings are your best time, get up early, go to bed early, get up early, do something positive at the beginning of the day, have a set schedule. Maybe you're going to say, for 2 hours in the morning, I'm going to work on the internet. And then at the end of that, I'm going to go to a SWAT team meeting, I'm going to do an informational interview, I'm going to do a cold call, have a series of doable tasks scheduled for each day. Maybe you're only going to have 2 job search things each day. Make it doable so that when you've reached your goal, you can give yourself a little happy dance and then move on to the reward section, which is walking around the lake or playing with your kids or whatever. Give yourself permission to read a book. Make sure you have a strong presence on the internet and do that. Analyze what is the best return on your investment of time. The most valuable thing each one of you has is your time. And so what is working for you, what's valuable, and the things that aren't working, concentrate on the things that are, but experiment always with other things as well. Create an uncluttered place to work. Clutter can help you feel overwhelmed even when you're not, or it adds to that. So create an uncluttered place for you to work, or go to a business office. We have lots of people that every day come to the Workforce Solutions office and they conduct their job search there just because mentally they're like, I've got to go to work. I've got to go to the office. And so it gives them a destination. Co-working and things like that will also work. Establish a routine. Multi-purpose. There's a very famous networking book called Never Eat Alone. That guy never goes to the gym unless he brings a friend along and they have a conversation while they're working out. Everything he does, it's with somebody that he can talk with, engage. So, you want to go to Blues on the Green, you want to go to Unplugged, you want to go check out a free movie, call up 2 or 3 people and say, let's go have fun. And in the course of that, and say, bring somebody, bring your roommate, bring somebody, meet new people. Set daily and weekly goals, join a SWAT team, reward yourself, socialize. Don't forget to have fun. Once a week, try to stay in touch with the people that you used to work with maybe, or once a month, have a brown bag lunch with them or something. Reconnect with former coworkers. Lots of you know Dan Egberg. He decided to go back into LinkedIn, and you go into the advanced search. You put in a company that you used to work for, and you put in people that work, let's say, in your division in the past. Maybe you can even specify they were engineers in the past at that company. And see if you pull up people that you used to work with that you've forgotten about. In fact, that should be an assignment. Everybody should try to do that. Go into LinkedIn, see if you can find 3 people that you used to work with in the past that you can now reconnect with. And say, hey, I just found you on LinkedIn. I haven't thought about you for years, but I'd like to reconnect with you. I see you're working at the so-and-so company now. What's that like? Tell me a little bit about it. So reconnect with people and make that be an assignment. Cut down on all that stuff that's bad for you. That helps you to feel overwhelmed. And I wanted to end with this. Helen Mirren has come out on the Yahoo, and it says, it's been showing a picture of her, different bathing suit. Now, the picture that's going all over the internet, she's 69. But in this one, they kept referring to a picture that went viral when she was 63. So she's 63 years old in this picture. And they were talking about what a great body she had. And she said, I do 12 minutes of calisthenics from the Royal Canadian Air Force book. Remember those from like 50 years ago? I tried to buy a bunch of them to give away for door prizes. On Amazon, they say they're $200 now because they're old. But you can go on, I printed out the exercises because I'm wellness group work. But anyway, 12 minutes a day. You say you don't have enough time to exercise? It's 12 minutes a day. And it's easy stuff. And she says, I fluctuate 10 pounds up and down, and every time I get high, I get higher on the weight. Every time my weight goes up, I don't know why I'm fixated on this. Every time my weight goes up, she said, I just start exercising. I do my little 12 minutes a day, and it gets back down where it's supposed to go. Let this be an incentive to you. 12 minutes. You got that. Okay. Exercise is a fabulous way not to feel overwhelmed. And that's probably all the time we have. However, I also want to tell you that if you can deal with that stress, good things will tend to happen, and it happens in all phases of our lives. My daughter-in-law used to work for AMD, very stressful job, and while she was working there, she was trying to have a baby. And for years, they tried to have a baby, and they couldn't have a baby. And she quit her job, and guess what happened? Sometimes stress keeps you from being successful in whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so if you can deal with stress, have fun, get a good attitude, look on job search as just the journey to the best job you ever had in your life, and kind of have that kind of anticipation and excitement, see if maybe things don't go better for you.